Vipassana at its core is about experiencing the truth of anicca, impermanence, through direct observation of the body's sensations while remaining equanimous. And of course, there are deeper layers. And the ultimate goal is not just to recognize that the sensations and arise and pass away, but to observe them so rapidly that you eventually transcend them. You eventually transcend the field of impermanence, the field of arising and passing away, into a field where no arising and no passing away happens, right? The field of nibbana. And this is the depth that Vipassana, that practicing with sensations, is meant to take us. Now, why is this important to how many body scans you should do in an hour, or how fast you should just be going in general, or how slow? Now, this is important to understand because the more subtle the sensation, the closer we get to experiencing and transcending the very fabric of reality, which is what it is to transcend the field of arising and passing away. So only when the mind sharpens enough to observe these refined sensations can we start seeing impermanence happening simultaneously. So arising and passing away happening simultaneously. So when you start with a gross sensation, let's say you're feeling a gross sensation here and it's big and dull, you see it arising, you're staying for a minute or two, like Goenka says, and you don't necessarily see it pass away. So it's arisen and it is staying for some time. It's staying for a long time. But when you get to very subtle sensations, you see the arising and passing away happening very rapidly, like just very, very quickly, right? And this is where the deepest part of the subconscious mind comes into contact with these subtle sensations. And here's the key. The subconscious is always reacting to all the different levels of sensations that we feel. And it's reacting to those whether we realize the level of sensations or not. So for instance, right, when we first start our Vipassana journey, we're, mainly seeing very gross sensations, some subtle and some more subtle. You see, the subconscious mind is reacting to the gross sensations and the subtle sensations, but we don't yet observe the subtle sensations. And as we develop in Vipassana, we start to observe, on the third or fourth day, you start to observe the subtle sensations here. And then eventually, as you do more and more body scans, you start to observe those subtle sensations everywhere. And so observing those subtle sensations, right, there's layers to it. Like Goenka says, in one of the discourses, I forget the day, but he says, Vipassana, he says something like Vipassana, you start at the gross and you go to subtler and subtler and subtler and subtler levels of sensations, right? So our job through Vipassana is to train the subconscious mind to remain equanimous. And to do this, we have to become aware and be equanimous with with the deepest, most subtle sensations that are tied directly to the conditioning pattern of the mind, to the sankharas of the mind, right? And to do this, right, we have to go to the subtle level. Now, to get back to the body scans, right? This isn't just about how many body scans, you've completed or how quickly you can go from head to toe and toe to head, right? Goenka also talks about in one of the discourses, right? I don't remember exactly if you were like going up to Buddha or something in some after, or, he was like, it's not about how many rounds you've done and you make, I've done 10,000 rounds. This person has only done 100, right? It's not about a numbers game of how many rounds you've completed, but it's how deeply can you observe impermanence through the sensations and how equanimous can you remain with each sensation, right? That is what's most important. And that's what's going to get you out of, that's what's going to get your sankharas out. That's what's going to recondition your mind, your subconscious mind. So this has been a really transformative realization in my practice, right? Because slowing down my scans, going to subtler and subtler levels, and allowing my awareness to flow naturally has been essential in reaching deeper and subtler levels of sensations, of being aware of sensations. So in the beginning, when I first started Vipassana on my first 10-day course, I put a lot of effort into the movement of my awareness from head to feet, from part to part, right? Goenka, I think in the day 4 discourse, he says you make your awareness a few inches, and that's how big your awareness should be. And then even when he's giving the Vipassana instructions on day 4 on a regular 10-day course, you're focusing on, this area during Anapana. And then he says, bring your awareness to the center of your head over here to a small area. So, right, your awareness should be a small area in general when you're, not doing the body sweeps. And even when you're doing the body sweeps, you just do that for a little bit, a few sweeps, and then you go back to, small area and then going part by part, piece by piece, right? So in the beginning, I used to cover a lot of ground, right? I used to, when he's giving the instructions, it takes about an hour and an hour and 15, or I don't remember exactly how long the Vipassana instructions are, but it's about an hour. And so the scan takes about an hour when he goes from head to toe. And that's how I started, right? That was the pace that I started at. It took about an hour to go from head to toe because the instructions that he gave, and like really going small areas and going piece by piece, it just generally took me about an hour to do one head to toe scan. And later on that course, same course, right? That pace got slower and slower as I was able to feel more subtle sensations. And, I remember at a certain point, I could only go like half my torso during a body scan, right? Or like during the hour group sit, I would, start here and I would like get to my belly as I'm scanning, part by part, piece by piece. And then, when I got to like my belly, the chanting would start. And I remember going to AT, assistant teacher, and saying, hey, am I going too slow? Should I like speed it up? Because Goenka in the 4-day discourse also does say, at this stage, and I think that's what he says, at this stage, meaning day 4, first time student, you just literally got the instructions in the afternoon. So you've done maybe, a couple hours of Vipassana, at the day 4 discourse. I remember him saying, at this stage, it should take about 10 minutes to do a body scan. And, it sounded like he wasn't trying to say that's, you should take that as a rule of thumb and just do 10 minutes all the time. He does say, you shouldn't go so fast that you don't even feel any sensations, and then you're missing the whole point of the practice, right? The whole point of Vipassana, as taught by Goenka, is the physical sensations. You got to give importance to the physical sensations. So if you're going so fast that you're not even feeling sensations, he's like, you're missing the practice. And then on the other hand, he says, don't go so slow so that you get bored. I don't remember if that was the exact word, but I remember him saying also don't go so slow that it's hard for you to work or something at this stage, right? And that was a specific thing I just remember is he says on the fast side, he's like, you're going to miss the practice. If you go too fast, you're going to miss the practice. And then he's like, don't go too slow at this stage, right? So that when you get bored and you're not really feeling the subtle sensations. So as I, have been practicing Vipassana, my scans, my part by part scans have just been getting slower and slower. And I noticed I was just going deeper and deeper into my mind, deeper and deeper into my awareness, deeper and deeper into subtler and subtler sensations. So what happens when you start to slow down, right? You start to notice even deeper and subtler sensations. And, I always thought when I was first practicing, I remember Goenka saying, he said many things. And one of them was, give all importance to the sensations, right? The physical sensations. That's the whole practice. And I remember him also saying, there was another question that arose, which was, let's say you're scanning here. Let's say you're scanning your forehead. And then a sensation popped up on your shoulder. Should you focus on that? And then Goenka, I remember him saying, no, like, stay where you are, like try to ignore it. And if you can't ignore it, just give more importance to where you're scanning, and like just keep scanning up here. And then, eventually when you get there, you observe whatever sensation arose. And I remember him saying the reason for that is because if you just are jumping from whatever sensations are just calling you, you're going to be jumping from gross sensation to gross sensation, and your mind is not going to go deeper. And so you don't want to like jump. Like if, you're here and you feel something here, you don't want to jump there. You just want to stay here and keep going. Now, my question, in my mind, or the curiosity that I had was, let's say I'm scanning right here. And what if a sensation pops up here, right? Now this is like, if this is a few inches, this is like a few inches. It's like 3 parts away, let's say. Do I jump to this sensation? And then obviously it's like, no, even if it's close, you ignore it. So then how close does it have to be for me to not ignore it? Obviously, if it's right next to it, as I'm moving, I'm going to feel it anyway. And so even like focusing on that and focusing on only observing where the exact part that you're at, the exact inches that you are at, and ignoring the other ones, right, slows the practice down even more, right? And it's like, just super sharpened. And it's like, what is just underneath the surface? Because every time something pulls you, it makes your awareness bigger and bigger, and you're not making it sharper and sharper to feel those subtler sensations. And it's very important in this practice to feel the subtle sensations in the body, because that's, the sharper the mind is, the more subtler that you're able to observe. And if it's like an analogy, it's like if you have a camera and you zoom in, right? You're able to zoom in on a specific aspect, right? When we first start Anapana, right? We start on this big area, and then we keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. And through that process of continuing to zoom in and just focusing on like this area right here, we're then able to start to feel the subtler and subtler sensations. So now this goes even deeper, right? You can go even subtler and subtler, right? When I'm meditating, mainly like during long courses, and I'm able to enter a state of jhana, a state of effortless concentration, then it's like the camera is moved in so much. And to me, it feels like I am moving at the same speed, but I cover such a small part of my body, right? It's as if I'm moving through a different dimension. Now, what do I mean by that, right? So let's say, you have a picture, I'm going to use an analogy. You have a picture, you took a picture with your phone, landscape or something. And let's say it's not zoomed in, it's just original. If you ran your hands like this, just through the picture all the way to the bottom, you'd get there pretty quick. Now, if you were to zoom in on the picture, right, let's say you zoomed in times 10. Now, when you drag, the same amount of time, now you have to do that 10 times, because the picture is taking up 1/10 of the screen. So by the time you've, done the same amount of movement, then you got to like move the picture over, do it again, move it over, do it again, and then, all the way to the bottom. And so you're able to get like a lot more details, even though the pace that your awareness is moving is the same, right? And so in very long courses, sometimes it would take me like days to complete a full body scan, like from head to toe, because my mind is just so sharp and so into the sensations that, it's like so deeply zoomed into all the finer details that I'm just moving on smaller and smaller scales, even though, it feels the same. And the super zoomed in view of the subtlest sensations is where you can start to observe impermanence on a much faster level, right? Like I was saying in the beginning of the video, with gross sensations, you see it arise, it stays for some time, and then it passes away. But with the finer and finer, when you're like super zoomed in, it's like you're able to observe simultaneously the arising and passing away. And in that arising and passing away, right? That field of impermanence is created by the realm of time, right? It is time. Time, the future is arising and the past is passing away at a very rapid rate, right? If you can feel the flow of time, it's don't get too philosophical, but you can feel how we're moving through time. And that has a specific pace. To the gross mind, to the like just surface mind, it kind of doesn't even seem like time is moving, right? It just feels like we're in the present and the present is like still. But really, that's not the truth of what's happening. The truth is the future is arising and the past is passing away very rapidly. And it's happening so fast that it's giving the illusion that it's not really moving. So what happens with, going super zoomed in and going to subtler and subtler and tinier sensations is you start to see not necessarily the rate of time itself, that's a very fast rate, but the rate of arising and passing away of sensations on a faster and faster scale, right? So it's not really about how many scans you can do in the hour, right? Goenka always tells us to measure our progress in Vipassana. It's how equanimous are we and how sharp do we make our mind? Are we working with subtler and subtler sensations? That's what he, said in the beginning, is you start with the gross mind and you just go subtler and subtler and subtler. And that like shows you your progress. If you're just gross all the time, if you're just experiencing gross sensations all the time, and sometimes you do that, but if that's all you're experiencing for a long time and you're not going subtler and subtler, right? I would first encourage you to like reach out to your teachers, your assistant teachers, and like get like personalized specific advice for your situation. But just in general, right? That should be the progression if you're working properly and you're doing Vipassana the way that it's intended. Now, is my scanning always so slow? No, there's a variety of factors at play, right? Sometimes I'm like super distracted in my thoughts, even when I'm on a course, right? There will be periods when I'm overwhelmed by a memory and I'm just thinking all the time, or, I'm just rolling in a thought. And then when it's like that, I, always remain equanimous with the thought, oh, thoughts are happening. Oh, there's a storm arisen. Oh, there's, this mind is rolling, and just, accept that and just try to come back. That might, happen for a while. And then other times I'll go super deep. I'll be super concentrated, right? So it ebbs and flows. When my mind is gross and I am in the distracted thoughts, of course I cover more ground. I'm moving more, a little bit faster, and I'll be able to like go through a body part quickly. And then other times when my mind is super focused and super sharp, it's like it'll take me a whole hour just to do my hand without, uninterrupted, no thoughts even come up, no disturbances at all, not even like the idea of a thought or a distraction arises. In those cases, right, it can take a really long time to move through the space. If I'm super distracted, I can move through this whole hand in like 2 seconds, right? 2, 3, like super fast. So it just depends a lot on where I'm at and all of this stuff. And, the idea again is not about how like you shouldn't have an idea of how I need to do 1 body scan per hour, or I need to do 3 body scans per hour, or I need to do half a body scan per hour. It's about allowing the practice to take you deeper. Sometimes, this is what I've found. My awareness and my sensations will let me have a deeper experience. Other times I'm rolling in thoughts. I'm doing all of this stuff and it's just like, I just go much faster. And sometimes I go much deeper. So it just kind of like depends on the day and stuff, but more and more in general, my tendency is to go slower when my mind allows, which my mind does allow most of the time. And it generally takes me many hours to do like 1 complete scan. So I'll do 1 complete scan over many hours. And then like, let's say I got from my head to my toe, my head to my toe, and it took me a few hours. Then I'll do, some sweeps, up and down for a few minutes, doing the whole body. Then I'll go back to part by part. And, sometimes that takes an hour to do that round, or it might take multiple hours, sometimes days, on long courses, or towards the end of a 10-day course, like day 9, I might only do one body scan from head to toe the whole day, just because my mind is so deep and I'm like paying attention to the, subtlest, finest sensations. And it's so interesting. So how do you apply this in your practice, right? Don't feel stuck, right? And don't rush. Don't rush and don't go too slow. What is the right pace? And for me, when I was a beginner, the right pace is, there's two things that I feel when I'm scanning my body: the movement of my awareness and the physical sensation itself, right? So there's two parts. And obviously the physical sensations, there's like many, many sensations, but two classes: the movement of my awareness as I'm moving it, side to side, up and down, like however I'm moving it. And then the actual physical sensation. My general guideline for myself is I should feel the actual physical sensation more than I feel the movement of my awareness, right? Going back to what Goenka said in the fourth day discourse, you shouldn't move so fast. And by move so fast, you shouldn't move your awareness so fast that you're not feeling any physical sensations and you're missing the practice entirely, right? You take that principle, and I'm like, okay, if I'm like, focusing here and I'm moving, the sensation of my cheek should be more than 50% of what I'm feeling. And the movement of my awareness, back and forth, however way I'm scanning, should be less than 50%. My general thing is like 70% I should be feeling the physical sensation, and 30% the movement of my awareness. Now, that's just numbers I'm making up to try to explain a concept, but when you give more importance to the physical sensation than to the movement of your awareness, based on, what Goenka said on the 4th day, of not missing sensations, of not moving so fast that you're not observing the subtler and subtler sensations. So again, it's not about how many scans that you do or how quickly that you do them. It's about observing impermanence. It's about observing subtler and subtler sensations. It's about sharpening your mind, and he says, the smaller, like another thing Goenka says, the smaller the area of awareness, the deeper the mind is bound to become, which is really important, because I find when I am in states of jhana or I'm at a course and I'm like meditating for so long, the area becomes so tiny. Like I was talking about earlier with the zooming in, it's like being able to see in like a 1-inch area, like hundreds of sensations, hundreds of arisings and passings away all together, And, it's like getting to that level and remaining equanimous with them. So just remember, Vipassana is a journey from gross to the subtle, and we're using sensations as a vehicle. And so the sensations themselves, as we're observing and progressing, are moving from gross to subtle. Slowing down might be the key to unlock that deeper level of your practice, right? Remember that thing. Don't move your awareness so fast as to miss physical sensations, because then you're missing the practice. You should feel the physical sensations more than you're feeling the movement of your awareness, right? So yeah, thanks for watching. Take care.